and what's interesting is not everybody appreciates these changes that occur in Kearney's life. I mean, there are readers out there that don't want Kearney to be attached to any one particular woman. There's readers out there who liked the lawyer that was in Mexican Hat, the divorced lawyer with the 2 children. And wanted Kearney to have a more of a serious relationship with her, you know.
But she needed to stay there. See, I mean, you have a double problem. It's not just the relationship, but the place. If you know he's moving, and you have put someone, and I can't think of her name. What was her name in Mexican Hat?
I think it was Karen, wasn't it? Yeah.
I honestly don't remember. But anyway, Karen has come to Mexican Hat, sorted through this stuff, and she's going to stay where she is. Well, then what, you know, see, you've got to deal with both geography and relationship.
Right.
And actually, Sarah, although I don't know that you probably don't know if you ever intended her to reappear at the end of Tularosa, you gave her a profession and a life that works brilliantly in what you've come to do, which is that she can go and come on the military. She can go out of the country, back to the country, move around the state. They can commute from, where is she?
She's,
Kansas?
Fort Leavenworth.
Right, yeah. So she
that's a good 800 miles away from Kearney, you know.
Right, so in the Judas Judge, she's in Kansas, and he's now in down near Ruidoso?
He's down in the Sacramento Mountains, southern New Mexico, and investigating what appears to be a spree killing of 6 people in some remote campgrounds, and she, you know, comes to visit them.
Right.
And they spend some time together.
But you've escaped a feeling of contrivance because of, you know, it's natural for them to be separated. It's natural for her to be off doing this stuff. And too many series, unfortunately, try to deal with that, you know, with conflict in the relationship and distance in the relationship through much more artificial kinds of setups. Yeah. And yours really is not artificial.
You and I talked once about how I really felt that I was swimming against the mystery writer's tide, the mystery novel's tide. The people in my books are basically pretty intact, competent people that aren't carrying a lot of baggage. Yeah, they have their little nicks and their wounds and their scars and their scabs that they live with, but they're really kind of whole, competent people that are out there functioning.
Or they're going to heal, even if they get hurt in the course of a book.
They're going to get over it. They're going to be pretty capable in terms of dealing with stuff. And I really wanted to put characters like that on the page because I tire so of the almost stereotypical, off-the-wall character that a lot of writers think they have to put on the page in order to capture the reader's attention. I don't think we have to do that as much as we do. I mean, that's been borrowed by Hollywood to the point now that it really is caricature. You know, when you think of the Mel Gibson loose Lethal Weapon type of character who's, you know, post-traumatic stress syndrome and suffering from the loss of the only woman he ever really loved, and semi-suicidal, and maybe a recovering alcoholic or a recovering whatever, you know. I think it's been done and done and done to death. And so what I tried to do, and what I'm continuing to try to do in this series, is put people on the page that are really pretty well wired together. And that includes even some of the bad guys and girls. I mean, I really like the bad characters that I create. I mean, I have to like them. There's certain elements to them that are totally despicable, but there's certain elements to them that are absolutely charming and understandable.
But don't you think that if the villain isn't of equal weight with the protagonist, that the book suffers a lack of balance?
Absolutely.
I mean, I think that that's a mistake an awful lot of writers make, is that the villain doesn't get enough attention. And in fact, if you want to carry that one step further, the victim ought to be interesting. Yeah. Even if the victim is dead, because you're really going to be investigating that character and that life as part of your unraveling the incident.
When you don't have a suspect, you have to investigate the victim. I mean,
exactly.
It's just part and parcel of the investigative process. In the Judas Judge, which is the latest release, which came out last July, we have this very wealthy retired judge, district court judge, who's murdered. And as Kearney and his team, and that's another interesting thing that I want you to get me back on, but as Kearney and his team begin to look into this guy's past, all that looked so fine and dandy starts to unravel, and some very deep, rather disturbing secrets about who this man is and what he did start to surface. And as a consequence, that leads to the climax of the book and the ability of Kearney to solve the novel. Solve the crime. I solve the novel. Yeah, that's my job, I guess. But I think that your villains have to have that kind of weight to them, and also your victims, so that you can play off all of that inner stuff, because there's a lot of psychodynamics that's going on there, and you want to be able to have enough going so that Kearney can play with it and he can build on it. Now, this idea of Kearney having a team, he's functioning in the Judas Judge as the deputy chief of the New Mexico State Police, and one of the things that I'm facing as he goes up the chain, as he continues to advance, is that he's not going to be able to always be the primary investigator in a case because of his other responsibilities. So that's creating for me an interesting situation of how Kearney can still be involved in the actual case investigation as he assumes greater and more responsibility within his career as a chief and a deputy chief.
Sure, but that lets you bleed more conflict into the book, because now, in fact, you did that in Judas Judge. You had him shoot down some guy, and so his own officers were furious with him for killing an officer. That's the book opens on that, so I'm not giving away anything material here. So he has to deal not only with investigating the crime and all the all of that, but he also has, conflict on his hands within his own team. I would like to pay you a compliment. I hope you won't take it as backhanded, because I absolutely do not mean it that way. But
well, we'll see.
If you do, tough. I'm going to say it anyway. In the Judas Judge, I really suspected, and only because my life is reading crime. Most people read a novel, occasionally. I'm reading several a day, so I'm probably a little more wired to all this. I was reasonably certain that I knew what was going on with the bad guy, et cetera, et cetera. What I found so interesting in the Judas Judge for me was that even though I was sure I knew what was happening, I was so interested in how you told it and so involved in how it got that way, et cetera, that it was as fresh and as compelling as if I'd had no clue what was going on.
I take that as a compliment.
And I mean that as actually a bigger compliment than if you had just surprised me.
I don't want to surprise you. I put everything on the page. There are no tricks. I don't think there are any tricks in my novels. I don't try to trick the reader. I don't ask them to play amateur sleuth and do, what's that parlor game with Colonel Mustard and...
Clue.
Clue, yeah. I don't ask them to play...
Colonel Mustard in the library
with the library with the wrench or the knife or whatever. I don't ask them to play Clue. Now, there's some readers who like those kinds of books and are drawn to them, but I don't write those kinds of books. I put everything right on the page, and it's very clear in the Judas Judge, I think, where the investigation is going to lead and who is going to be targeted as the bad person, and hopefully write a good enough story that people feel the way you said you did. You wanted to see how it unraveled, how it came together.
But it wasn't just the story. It was the characters as well, that even though I knew what sort of monster he was, how he got that way and how he did it was compelling.
It's a very interesting subject because, it's one of those few taboo subjects that people just don't talk about. And I wanted to write about that, not because I had investigated cases like that, but because of my background in psychotherapy.
Well, I realized that after listening to you last night. The light bulb went on, and I thought, aha, of course he wanted to investigate it.
So that's really what, excuse me, that's really what drew me to that particular plot idea.
You and I haven't always agreed about how well your books have been plotted. Serpent Gate was the one that I don't really care for the plot structure because I found that it was two parts, and I know I feel that I'm allowed to say that. I love you and I love your books, and the fact that I didn't like the structure of Serpent Gate, I think, as a reader, I'm entitled to have that view.
You are.